there. Thanks for tuning in. This is the Tammy Tine Design YouTube channel. I'm Tammy, and today I'm creating a two-page layout with 5 photos. Here are the papers I'm using today. I have 2 sheets of Fig Swirl cardstock from Basil. I thought this muted gray tone worked well with the wood grain paper. The background color of the floral paper is not exactly white. White cardstock would have been too bright for this, so I went with the Fig Swirl instead. The cardstock will be the background for this layout. This orange dot on the end is a Simple Stories paper from one of their Basics collection packs. It was the perfect color to match back to the orange color in the flowers. The wood grain paper, the floral, and the blue polka dots all came from a Park Lane paper pad from Joann's, but I don't remember which paper pad it was because I took them all apart. I also have this alphabet from Sassafras. Never used this one. I was really happy that the green color matched back to the greens in the floral paper. I also have a light wood grain Thickers alphabet that's a good match back to the wood grain paper. I also have some embellishments from Simple Stories. This is a new Simple Vintage collection. I have the foam stickers, the ephemera, and the bits and pieces. And this collection is called Essentials Color Palette. I did not buy any of the papers, but I think that these embellishments are really versatile because it's just a color palette with monochromatic pieces. I really like these titles. There are big and smaller phrases and heart pieces in a rainbow of colors. And both the ephemera and bits and pieces packs are full of fun clustered embellishments. I also pulled these puffy heart stickers from Freckled Fawn. Not sure which color I will use, but both of these sets coordinate. I still may pull out some enamel dots or rhinestones as a finishing touch too. I have some embellishments on my tray. I love these corduroy fabric hearts. These little die cuts are from a couple of different Jen Hadfield ephemera packs. It was so easy to pull them from my new die cut storage system. I also added a few wood veneer pieces. I have some open hearts that I think came from Hobby Lobby, and the leaves I got at the Dollar Tree. Here are the photos I'm using today. I live in Florida and I'm going to document our most recent hurricane, and that was Ian. I have 2 horizontal photos and 3 vertical oriented photos. That is what I'm using on this layout. I'm going to go ahead and cut all of my papers, and then I'll come back and show you the background and design ideas for this layout. All of my papers are cut, but nothing is glued down yet. This is one of my favorite design techniques for a two-page layout, and that is to basically mirror the design from one side to the other. I cut the wood grain paper in half at 6 inches and placed one half on each side of the layout. On the left side of the layout, the photos will take up more space and overlap the floral paper. So I cut the papers on that side a touch smaller. The floral is 3 inches and the blue polka dot is a half inch. On the right side of my layout, the photos won't take up as much room, but I'll be adding a big embellishment cluster along with the journaling, so I cut the papers a bit wider. The floral is 4 inches wide and the blue polka dot strip is 3/4 of an inch wide. All of these measurements will be included on a sketch. I always offer a free sketch for the process videos I have on YouTube. I'll leave a link in the description box below. Let me line up my photos. I have 2 landscape photos on the right side and 2 portrait photos on the left, along with this smaller 3 by 4 inch photo. You can already see there's more visual weight on the left side with my photos than there is on the right. The title will go on the left and the big journaling block will go on the right. I haven't decided where the smaller photo is going to go yet. Even though it's the smallest photo, it illustrates one of the scariest things that happened during this particular hurricane. I want to use one of the foam stickers from the Simple Vintage set with this photo, so we'll see where that goes when I start embellishing. Now that I see my photos on the page, I think I'm going to mat them. I don't always map my photos. I use white cardstock as a background a lot of the time, and I don't feel that colorful photos need to be matted to stand out on white cardstock. But here, I want the photos to have a little bit of a bigger footprint, and matting them will also give me the ability to layer under them. And I can use foam tape under the mat to get some additional dimension. Before I forget, here's my title. I already have it on wax paper, which I like to do to help me get the placement right. The title is Writing Out Hurricane Ian. I may change the placement a bit when I get it on the layout. And I will bring in some color too by adding a strip of the blue polka dot pattern paper under the word hurricane. I did add in another alphabet. I pulled this orange alphabet from the Daily Flash collection from October afternoon. I inked all of my papers with gathered twig distress ink. I'm going to grab some cardstock to mount my photos, and then I'm going to glue everything down, and we can move on to the fun part. Or at least it's my favorite part, the embellishing. So everything is now glued down. I did mount my photos with the same fig swirl cardstock as the background paper. I debated over going into my cardstock stash to look for black cardstock for the mat. White was not the right choice here because of the papers, but black didn't really feel right either because there's no other black elements here. I used brown to ink the edges, and I didn't want brown mats. So rather than go searching, I had another piece of fig swirl right here on my desk, and that's what I used. I also put the word hurricane on that piece of blue polka dot pattern paper. I put fishtails on both sides and mounted that piece on foam tape so I can layer around it. The only photo I didn't glue down is my 3x4 photo. I do want to add it above these other photos at just a little bit of an angle. That foam sticker Lucky will go over the top. This photo highlights a part of the journaling, so the foam sticker is going to help bring some attention over to this photo. I'm planning to type my journaling and print it on my favorite vellum address labels. These are Avery shipping labels and it's clear vellum. My journaling will take up a whole label, so I'm going to cut a mat from the same cardstock and add that to my layout as a placeholder. I've added the mat. Again, it's the same color as the background. I'm not sure how this will get adhered. It'll probably be flat against the page and I'll layer around it. But for now, I'm just going to set it off to the side. Looking at my page, I'm starting to think about where my embellishment cluster should go. I'm excited to use these ephemera pieces from Simple Stories. The simple vintage lines don't usually appeal to me as much as their other collections, but something about this one and having the rainbow of color families really made me want these embellishments. I'm cutting off the top of the packaging so I can pull everything out. In their newer collections, Simple Stories has been doing bigger ephemera pieces. I'm not sure which collection this started with, but I really like this trend. Each piece has the look of many layers, but it's just a flat piece, and they are big. I'm pulling out the orange and the green ones. Those are the two colors that will work best with my papers. I'm going to move these into the frame in a moment to show you some of the pieces in this pack. I'm loving the monochromatic layers. I personally do not buy all of the papers from every collection because I already have a ton of paper and I'm always going to have a ton of paper. So, what I appreciate about these embellishments is that they can go with anything. There's no color combination that is only going to work with the papers from this collection. I can mix and match these with other collections where one of the colors coordinate. Not every color works here. I have blue in my layout, but the blues in this collection are not a good fit. But both the green and the orange work, so that's what I'm going to focus on for this layout. I'm trying to find that other light blue piece so you can see that the color is not a good match. The darker blue that's in here does not work either. What do you think of these big pieces? I think they will be great for cluster bases, and that's basically what I'll do with these on this layout. I want to look at all of the smaller bits and pieces too, so let me cut the top of the packaging off. There are additional little button pieces in this set. I won't be using any of those on this layout. I'm going to pull out the green and the orange pieces and kind of flip through a few of these too. It looks like there are two pieces for every color and then some of those additional buttons. Even though these are smaller, you still get that layered look without having to do any work. If you struggle with clusters, check out these sets. There's no dimension, but you can always put these up on foam tape to add it yourself. I love the look of all of the layers. They added patterned strips and labels and florals. This set is really cool. It'll be interesting to see if Simple Stories carries this through to newer Simple Vintage sets too. Let me gather all of these up and put these off to the side. So now I need to figure out where these are going to go. I do know I want to use the word lucky with the 3x4 photo up here. If I want to build in contrast, I can choose between the two orange pieces. I don't think that the word lucky would show up as well if one of the green die cuts were under it. So I'm going to go with one of the orange ones. This piece is bigger and will show up better, so I think I'll go with this one. I'm going to start layering in some of the die cuts I pulled. I think the biggest one with the orange flowers could work behind the layered die cut and the word lucky. You won't see all of it once I layer the word over the top, but the word will fill in some of the empty gaps behind. I will also layer up some of the single flowers on the side. And I'm going to add in that cute puffy heart. It will end up leading into the foam sticker. I didn't like any of the other placements I tried. So that's a good start to the cluster above my photos. I'm going to start gathering a few things for a cluster to lead into my title. I'm going with the small, medium, and large cluster approach on this layout. I will add that rainbow, but I'm going to move it to the other side of the layout. My smallest cluster is going to be the one down by my title. My medium cluster will go above the photos on the left, and the biggest cluster will go on the right page. As I continue to fill in these clusters, I'm just pulling some pieces of greenery and flowers from my tray. I will end up trimming some of my pieces to better fit the space. Moving on to the right side of the page. At first, I thought I would try using the green layered die cut, but I didn't like how it looked underneath the journaling mat. Most of the interest on the green piece is down at the bottom with the butterfly. My journaling card would cover all of that up. So I went with the orange one instead, and that brought over the orange from the photo cluster to the right side of the page. The small, medium, and large cluster approach is a great way to lead your viewers' eyes around your layout. I usually let the page dictate where each cluster will go. You could have the biggest cluster be near where you think is the most important part of your page. The medium cluster could be the next most important, and so on. But on this layout, I have much less space down by my title, so that's going to have to be my smallest cluster. There's more room above the photos, and there's even more space over by the journaling. So that's how my clusters will fill out. I think my rainbow looks better on the right side of the page above my journaling. I've been through many hurricanes living in Florida, and I always like to add a rainbow to my hurricane pages. And it gives me a spot to build in some greenery and flowers behind it. While it may look like I have two clusters going on, I'm looking at this cluster on the right as one big cluster with the journaling in the middle. I added in my wood veneer pieces and that stay home die cut. And now I have everything where I want it. So while I'm gluing everything down, I can tell you the story about these photos. We moved into our house in March of 2022. My husband kept saying that every time he moved to a new place, Orlando would get a hurricane. So he spent months assuming we were going to get a storm. I kind of don't like putting vibes into the universe like that. But the funny thing was, it was exactly the same for me. Every year I moved to a new place, or when I moved back to Orlando after living in Nashville, Orlando got a tropical storm or a hurricane that year, every single time. And sure enough, in late September, Hurricane Ian was headed straight towards Central Florida. To make everything even more complicated, we had just finalized plans with a contractor, and that same week, the crew showed up to demolish our master bathroom and half of our kitchen. Our garage was full of new appliances and flooring, the new master bathroom vanity, and boxes of shower tile. The crew was kind enough to move everything inside the house for us so that we could park both of our cars in the garage and not leave the cars out on the street through the hurricane. So we rode out the storm with only one bathroom. Half of our kitchen was gone, and there were boxes for the renovation everywhere. It was quite the cluster of events. Hurricane Ian hammered us for over 24 hours. The winds were not as strong for us. We had some gusts that got pretty bad and caused some damage to neighbors, but it was really the rain that was the worst. We got 15 inches of rain and it was spread out over the entire day. This storm did not pass us quickly. It stalled and dumped a ton of water. We have a retention pond in the backyard, and we watched as the water kept rising and rising, and the water flowed over the banks an inch toward the house. But we were lucky that it never got into our backyard. We lost power for about 36 hours. We had to warm up freezer leftovers in pans over sterno. We keep saying we need to buy a camp stove that we can cook on when we have no power, but we never seem to get around to buying one. My husband and I played board games all day and hardly spent a lot of time in front of the sliding glass doors watching the wind blow leaves around. Truly, it could have been worse. We were very lucky. I ended up taking off one of the puffy fabric hearts. I didn't like where the third one was, and I felt like the two that I left provide a really good diagonal balance between the two pages. Right now, I'm adding some puffy hearts from Freckled Fawn. I decided to go with the blue because I had already added so many green and orange accents. I wanted to add a touch of blue to each cluster. As a finishing touch, I grabbed some orange rhinestones and I'll be sprinkling in some small rhinestones in each cluster. And that's where I will call this one done. For two-page layouts, one of my favorite ways to build the design is to mirror the background. Whatever papers go on one side is repeated on the other side. After I finished filming, I added a few more details to fill out my embellishment clusters. If you love sketches, be sure to check the link in the description box below to download a sketch of my completed layout.